Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. The governors of the 9 Brazilian states most affected by a record number of fires since 2010 have urged President Jair Bolsonaro to accept foreign aid to fight the blazes. Mr. Bolsonaro earlier met the Chilean president, accepting the country's offer of 4 aircraft to help fight the fires sweeping through the world's largest rainforest. Speaking to journalists after a meeting with the president, Sebastián Pinera, in Brasilia, Bolsonaro said a meeting with regional neighbours except Venezuela to discuss a common policy in defence of the Amazon will be held on September the 6th in Colombia. However, there is still pressure on Brazil to accept the $20 million in aid offered by 7 leading industrial nations that met at the G7 last weekend. A record number of fires are burning in Brazil, most of them in the Amazon region. The rainforest is a vital carbon store that slows down the pace of global warming. The UK government has asked the Queen to suspend Parliament just days after MPs return to work in September and only a few weeks before the Brexit deadline. Boris Johnson said a Queen's speech would take place after the suspension on the 14th of October to outline what he described as his very exciting agenda.
We're doing exactly what I said on the steps of Downing Street, which is that we must get on now with our legislative domestic agenda. People will expect us. We need to get on with the stuff that Parliament needs to approve on tackling crime, on building the infrastructure we need, on technology, on levelling up our education and reducing the cost of living. That is why we need a Queen's speech, and we're going to get on with it.
But it means the time MPs have to pass laws to stop a no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October would be significantly cut. Opposition parties have reacted with anger, with MPs accusing the Prime Minister of running away from Parliament.
He is trying to prevent Parliament holding him to account. We will do absolutely everything we can next Tuesday to legislate to prevent him doing that.
Shutting down Parliament in order to force through a no-deal Brexit, which will do untold and lasting damage to the country against the wishes of MPs, is not democracy, it's dictatorship. And if MPs don't come together next week to stop Boris Johnson in his tracks, then I think today will go down in history as the day UK democracy died.
Leaders from African countries and international organisations have gathered in Japan's Yokohama for their latest Tokyo International Conference on African Development. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe spoke at the conference and stressed the importance of addressing climate issues and the need for technological innovation. It was the 7th instalment of the conference and the first meeting since 2016 when it was held in Nairobi. The meetings are led by Japan and co-organised by the United Nations, the UN Development Programme, the World Bank and the African Union Commission. At least 2 people have died and 7 were injured after part of an apartment building collapsed in the West Ukrainian town of Drohobych. A gas explosion was the reason for the incident, Ukrainian State Emergency Services said, adding that rescuers were still searching for survivors. Munich Airport was forced to cancel around 130 flights after police halted check-in and evacuated the building to search for a passenger who mistakenly went through an emergency exit. Police said they had to order all people out of the airport, including passengers who had already passed through security, to ensure no dangerous items had been left behind. The missing passenger, a Spanish man who opened an emergency door in Terminal 2, was later found in Terminal 1. Thousands of revellers have taken part in what is considered the world's biggest food fight in the eastern Spanish town of Bunol. As is traditional, tomatoes were the order of the day, attended by around 20,000 people. 6 trucks carrying a total of 145 tonnes of overly ripe tomatoes rolled through the streets before organisers threw them into the crowd. The tomatina is said to have originated from a spontaneous bust-up amongst villagers in 1945. And finally, a new meaning to the phrase doggy paddle. It's after the traditional end-of-summer dog and human swimming race hosted by one of Croatia's few canine-friendly beaches. The race, which returned to the town of Crikvenica after it was held for 2 years on the nearby island of Rab, includes a short running and swimming course, with the fastest dog-owner tandems winning special treats such as a canine wine dubbed Prosecco and ice cream. This year the race was won by a returning champion and 2017 winner Nimbus. And that's your international news around the world in 5.